There's nothing on here. So we have the approval of the minutes for October 24th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve them.
Motion by Brandon to approve. Is there a second? Second by Michael. Is there any further discussion or changes or objections, anything in there? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'll abstain.
You weren't here.
Yeah. I was.
Well, you were here in spirit, right? We heard you a couple of times. So public hearings, none. Bring this under discussions, and the first up is warrant article rough draft review. We all have it in our packet here. And that's the stuff we went over at our last meeting, or a couple of meetings anyway, and kind of decided definitions and where those new definitions, where those, definitions are gonna go. And I have a couple of things on here. Actually, it has to do with the business office, and we have the definition of business offices as building or buildings used primarily for conducting the affairs of businesses, industry, or government, which may include ancillary services for office workers such as a restaurant, coffee shop, healthcare facility, daycare facility. In some of the zones that's going to be in, for instance, the rural ag zone, we don't allow restaurant, we don't allow coffee shop, and we don't allow healthcare facility. And then in business 2, we don't allow a coffee shop, healthcare facility, or daycare. And what I'm getting at is that maybe we ought to just cross out that last sentence there. We can use and include the ancillary services in there for office workers, but we don't need to give those examples because they aren't allowed in all the zones.
We allow business offices in the rural ag district?
It's a special exception.
Oh, it's a
It is,
special.
on a special
Okay,
exception,
okay.
but that's not
I got
too hard to
stuck on
get
it.
sometimes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if we don't allow those, we allow some of them in some of the zones and some of them in some of the other zones. So if we leave it at just ancillary services for office workers, we can do it at a case by case basis as to what they want to put in there. If they want to put a daycare or something like that. And it would be ancillary to the business. So shall we do that? Leave
Yeah,
that sentence out?
Yeah, the definition
that.
should
Okay.
define what's allowed.
I think so too. Okay, we'll cross that right out of there. That's all I have. Anybody else? A little peek through there. Want to read down them and walk through them, or are we good with that?
Just
Now's our chance to get the grammar correct. So if we
Yeah.
read for that too.
Under the business office, where we just struck that section.
Yeah,
If they want to put in something, they would have to go through zoning first and then to us
well,
to get a special exception.
if it was a paying one, something like more like a business, if it's an ancillary service, something that is clearly incidental to the main use of the property, then planning board can look at that to see. Then I think it's up to the planning board, or the planning board would be able to approve that. But if it's like taking outside people in, other people, not those people from that specific business there, then it would probably be a separate business. And if it wasn't allowed, then it wasn't allowed, I would think,
And
when we're deciding.
probably in Swansea, given our scale, like if there was a daycare or a restaurant, they'd probably have to invite the outs,
And if they did, we'd have to see if it's allowed in that zone,
Yeah.
and then if it wasn't, they would have to go to ZBA.
Well, kind of what I'm thinking of is something, say, like a CNS or something like that.
Yep.
That has their own cafeteria. We approve something like that, but they have to pay for their food, but they have as an ancillary,
But it's for the employees of that,
Right.
that building, right? So
yes. But does it become a restaurant when they're having to pay?
I wouldn't think so, because the general public would not be using it. Or
No.
not be purchasing their meals there.
The way I like to think about this is, Keene State, they have, their primary use is educational, but they still have a dining facility and they still have dormitories, but those two uses are ancillary because they're in support of the education piece. So it's kind of the same thing with, a hospital cafeteria. That cafeteria is strictly in support of the hospital. So that's kind of like what an ancillary use is. It's just in support of the primary.
But as a patient, I could go down to that and purchase something.
And so could
And you should
somebody
be-
off the street
correct.
too.
Yeah,
Right?
and
But
they
it's
should,
ancillary to. the-
exactly, it's necessary for the primary use to function at its fullest capacity.
And again, it comes under site plan review. Under our questioning of the applicant as to how you're gonna use this and are people coming off the street and you have parking for it and all that or not. If it looks like they're gonna use that as a business, then we'd have to treat it as such.
Yeah, if they start doing carry out of their kitchen, then that's a separate.
Drive up or.
Yeah, that's a wholly separate issue.
I was
yeah.
gonna say, your
Yeah.
example, the pharmacy at
Mhm.
the hospital is not really, you know. I don't think that would be included, because people can come in from the outside and.
Oh, yeah, that's where I go get all, yeah,
So in a case by case.
Yeah, I think.
By
it's
the
case
planning
by
board.
case.
yeah, yeah.
So consensus, I guess.
So Picayune, why is it plural? Business offices?
Oh.
Should it just be singular business
No,
office?
because we're taking,
I think
into
it's-
consideration more than one. If it's an office building, there are many offices in there. I think that's why we had
Okay,
it as plural.
okay.
I actually thought about that, and I think the main reason why I did that is because the definition said building or buildings,
Okay.
and so I just wanted to. Yeah, we
And plus,
could do either or.
it could be
We've got a
interpreted that
reason.
we'd only allow one office there.
Yeah.
You know, a neighbor could come in and say, well, that says office. There's more than one in that building there,
So
so.
that's a good,
You know.
good note though.
So let's see, are we gonna read through these, or am I gonna read through these, rather? Just to check it off? Let's do that, because we have a public hearing coming up, and if there's something that we don't, now's the time to change it. So let's see, amendment number 1. And we are changing. Again, that has to do with the definitions. Amend section 13 by amending the following definitions. And we're crossing out corporate offices and putting in business offices. And again, that would be building or buildings used primarily for conducting the affairs of business, industry, or government, which may include ancillary services for office workers. Period.
Okay, time out again. Where we say section 13, should we add the word definitions, just so like if I'm sitting in the polling place and I'm wondering, well, what is that section?
Oh, yeah.
Would
Sure,
that help?
we
It wouldn't
can.
hurt,
No, it
right?
wouldn't hurt at all.
I'll call the legal, I don't think he'll have a problem with it, I can't
Okay.
imagine. he'll have a
No,
problem.
that's what that
Yeah.
section is, right? So. Good.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, and we're service establishment we're adding, and that says provides a skilled service, personal labor, or expertise as opposed to providing a product or a tangible commodity. And we're adding retail establishment, and that is sales in small quantities and or direct to the customer. And we're getting rid of the definition for professional, so that's gonna be all crossed out. We have amendment 2, that is amend section 4, article A.2.b to read as follows. In addition to the aforementioned permitted uses, the following are permitted after the issuance of a special exception by the Board of Adjustment. And that's item B, manufactured uses. We're crossing out corporate offices and putting in business offices. And industrial parks, but business offices putting in there. Amendment number 3. That is amend section 5, article A.1.f and G to read as follows. Use is permitted in the Village Business District 1, no building or premise shall be erected, altered, or used, and no land shall be used for any purpose except, and when we get down to F, we're crossing out retail business establishment and replacing it with retail establishment. And we're crossing out personal service shop or service establishment, and we're replacing it with service establishment. Let's see, that brings us up to amendment 4. Which is amend section 5, article B.1. Is that dot 1.e? F and V to read as follows. Use is permitted in the business district. No buildings or premises shall be erected, altered, or used, and no land shall be used for any purpose except. And when we get down to E, we're crossing out professional and business offices and replacing it with business offices. Get down to F, we're crossing out retail sales services, replacing it with retail establishment. And when we get down to V, we're adding service establishments. Brings us to amendment number 5, and that's amend section 5, article C.1.e, F and J to read as follows. Use is permitted in the Village Business District 2, no building or premise shall be erected, altered, or used, and no land shall be used for any purpose except. And when we get down to E, we're crossing out professional, business, or corporate offices, replacing it with business offices. Get to F, We're crossing out personal service shop or service establishment and replacing it with service establishment. And when we get down to J, we're crossing out retail business establishment and replacing it with retail establishment. Brings us to amendment 6. And that one is amend section 6, article A, 1.1.d.6, 11, and 24 to read as follows. Uses permitted in the commercial industrial zone. No building or premise shall be erected, altered, or used, and no land shall be used for any purpose except, when we get down to 6, we are crossing out business and professional offices and replacing it with business offices. Get down to 11, we're crossing out retail sales and services and replacing it with retail establishment. Get down to 24, we're adding service establishment. No, there isn't. Well, there will be a 20. Sorry. Now that brings us over to amendment 7, which is amend section 6, article B.2.c to read as follows. And we're crossing out permitted uses and changing that to uses permitted. In the industrial park district, no building or premises shall be erected, altered, or used, and no land shall be used for any purposes except. And when we get down to C, we're crossing out corporate offices and replacing it with business offices. And that brings us to the end of that. So far, so good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to make a quick note. You see the slight inconsistencies with the numbering, the language, permitted uses, use permitted,
Mhm.
flip-flopped around. One of these is numbered in numerical order, others are lowercase alphabet. That's on my list. You can't fix it this year, but I want to get rid of those inconsistencies. I want every section to be consistent with the last. It's on my list. I just want to put that out there in the world.
We did that last year with the site plan review regulations.
Yep,
Same
exactly.
Yeah, we changed them all around. So,
So
yeah,
we're gonna have a very nice looking code in a couple of years.
that's right. If the voters allow it. They don't get sick of us, right?
We might be able to see.
So what are you guys doing here anyways? Too much reading in the voting booth.
Absolutely.
What did we zone?
So
I'm sorry.
are we still in the amendments?
Yeah,
Because we need a motion to have these amendments go to, if we're done discussing the amendments.
I want to just verify something.
Okay.
Okay. We rezoned from Wilson, the south end of Wilson Pond up to 30, the key line.
Yeah.
What did we wind up, was that a business?
Village business.
This is one.
Village business 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we done anything in our amendments to change the concept of what was?
What's allowed in that business district? We did change, we removed some things that were allowed. I don't know if we added anything in there or not, but we did change that. I don't know if we all have current copies of it. I have got penciled notes of it in mine. That's what we did.
BB1 does not have any new proposed uses. It's just a rewording of retail.
2
That's my take, but I was waiting.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. I was waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean for our current zone? I mean, for the changes we're doing now?
Yeah, but that, it doesn't have any effect.
No, it doesn't on that one.
Nothing's effectively changing.
No.
And that's what you're asking, right, Richard?
Pardon me?
You're asking if anything here changes what's
Yeah,
allowed.
what we're doing now, does it change anything in the, what was the intent?
Yeah.
And what was actually, of the neighborhood that they wanted to do? I just want to make sure that our change in definitions and stuff like
Right.
that is not going to infringe on their concept or on the concept we wanted to establish there.
No,
I don't believe it.
no, I don't think it does. No, we. Well, business offices already in that zone. And it has the right wording too, business offices. We didn't have to change that. We took the professional part of it out of it.
One of the things I brought up earlier. We have under the section 5. E, H, and I amended in March 2024.
That's when we remove something?
Yes, no, I understand
Oh,
that,
okay.
but the thing is, what have we done?
What was removed
There's no
from that?
reference there.
I don't recall what was removed from that. We'd have to look back on one of the
Yeah,
earlier dates of that to see.
I envision an appendix, but.
Yeah. to see.
That's some work.
That's handy though.
It would be
Yeah.
handy. I
We don't have-
would love it. I would love an appendix.
I'm sorry.
I agree with that completely though, Richard. It drives me insane.
So this is just a question, for readability, would it make sense to kind of underscore the districts that we're talking about?
I thought about it. I think the short answer is I don't think we could. I think we could, but then we have strike throughs, italics, and then we would add underscores. It kind of just adds. It adds a lot of visual
Okay.
uh
I don't,
pop.
I just didn't know if it, yeah. Then I underlined mine as.
It's a good
we went
thought.
Because, you know, it's.
Yeah.
Keeps it straight, right?
It's definitely a good thought. I think the only thing we want different is the changes or proposals.
Mhm.
Those are the only, yeah, but I see what you're saying.
Well, even where we say amendment number 5, are you in favor of the adoption of the amendments that are change to this district? You know, I don't know if we can add it in there, that might make it stand out.
I can write up a quick rough how it would look.
But we still don't want to confuse them either, though. I think that's what you're
Yeah.
getting at as well.
Yeah.
The changes are usually the difference. You see the difference in there and say, oh, that's what they're changing that. But if we underline it, it might confuse them saying, well, are they changing that? Or aren't they?
That was my worry. In previous years, we didn't do that.
No.
And I didn't want it different from previous years.
No, I think we should.
Can we make it boldface?
Definitely, I don't think we can do boldface either.
It's
I
too
do-
confusing. It's confusing enough with the zoning ordinance because most people aren't as familiar with it as we are.
Different color?
Yeah, it's confusing enough for them.
It is confusing enough and a lot of people anyways don't even read that. They don't, they,
I'm usually a heavy user of boldface and I always get complaints that it's harder to read, so I try to tone it down when I can.
Why are you doing that?
Right. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to
okay, a motion
accept these.
to approve the changes for the warrant article and proceed to public hearing
I'll second.
on our next meeting. Okay, seconded by Brandon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Good. On the road.
Right.
Yeah, we're on the road to that one. So, let's see, the next item B was the Mark Udry, which with Civil Works, New England, map 22, lot 5, and they've got to do more work on that, so they won't be in tonight. Item C is Sherry Howard zone change proposal. Is she in here? Is that her right there?
Yep.
That's her.
Yep.
Okay, you're up.
We do have little area maps.
Yeah, we've got these.
Okay, so I did some mapping too, so there's a couple of copies. So there's more than.
You have it.
Let's see. Let's just-
You need to.
Sure. I am Beverly. Oh, actually, no, I already have that.
All right. So,
You want to get to them.
A lot of work.
yeah.
Yes, it'll be fun.
Mhm.
So, what we're trying to do is, basically rezone the road. Because it is on commercial and business. And there's always been residential homes there. And the map of Keene that I put on there too. The whole 1 mile acre. Is all low density and single homes on that end of the road. So I was part of these. Consistent, we're hoping to be, because most of these residents here on our Swanzey end. Had no idea that they're in the commercial, industrial zone and the business zone. So what we're proposing, Basin Road is on new residential lots with single family homes. And whereas the Keene end of the road is zone rural, low density, single family residence. Or conservation, and whereas Basil Road is a class 5 road, is not wide enough to handle the commercial business volume. Of the traffic and is already overburdened by trucks and business vehicles using it as a shortcut. Making it unsafe for residents to walk and bike, and whereas the complete street map. Street maps. In the master plan identifies Basil Road as a local collector. And all other local collector roads in the town are residential or rural roads. Such as Womack Road and Matthews Road. And whereas the master plan economic development objective 2, action 3 is review current zoning to ensure adequate land area is zoned for commercial, industrial uses and in the appropriate locations. And whereas lots on Basil Road are backed in Swanzey by Yale Forest on one side and a large significant wetland on the other, which the recent wetland evaluation by Moosewood Ecological listed it in the top 10% of Swansea's wetlands for flood storage and wildlife habitat, which creates a critical wildlife crossing situation. And whereas the entire east side and half of the west side of Basin Road lies atop of an aquifer, there is the zoning map on the town of Swansea dated 9/1/1927 as amended, and further amend the following. The lots fronting Basin Road are now included in the business district and or commercial industrial district, exceptions below are Route 10. Shall instead be included in the residential district or the rural agricultural district, is what we're looking for. And then I have them all listed on how they're zoned now. And their lot numbers and the property owners, and how we would like to see them zoned. Further down the road.
Okay,
Okay, and then I did the map of what exists now. And there's several of these people that have no idea. That we wanna keep these lots here, obviously commercial. Anything past New Run Brook, we wanna have basically everything listed as residential. And there's only 3 lots here. They're actually businesses that are running now. Arlington Paving, Andy Hills. And Alcover Storage.
What was the second one?
Andy Hill,
Andy.
yeah. So what we want to do is have it basically be like this. So we're basically gonna keep all the commercial, obviously this is all commercial, but everything that's on Base Hill Road. You stay commercial, just a small section of the Humane Society here, which has an inlet between some lots here. Have that just be consistent with just residential there, and they can keep the rest of their lot, which I know is in the commercial industrial zone. Which they're not really sure what their intention is. Their intention is down the road, what they want to utilize it for their place. So, and then Arlington Paving, he's neutral at the moment, and his concern was, basically, it's not gonna impede on his transporting, vehicles like he's been doing right along since he started, which I don't believe it does. So that's the only thing that I was concerned with. And same thing for Andy Hills, which he's renting out the lot now. So basically the 3 business lots that are there, they do what they've been doing. Right along, and then everybody else is zoned residential. To be consistent with the rest of the road. To be considered a Keene.
Does The Humane Society have any frontage on Base Hill Road?
Yes, lot 25.
25.
Yep, there's a small
24.
little section, it's maybe not even a
Oh, this
quarter,
little thing
Yep.
right there, okay.
quarter of an
thank you.
acre, not
Yeah,
even,
right there.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that was the only thing that we would say, you know, let's make it
Mhm.
consistent and just zone it, residential.
So lot 25 is a right of way for Humane Society off of Base Hill? Is that what you're
I
saying?
would guess
Just
I guess it's
Part
called
of
right away,
Not really, they own it. It wouldn't be a right of way. If you own it, that's your.
right?
frontage.
It's- I don't know,
So
yeah.
that's
the
where it is right
language.
there.
Is there only
Leave that
entrance
here.
into
It's
that?
an entrance to basically down into this wetland, that's all that's back there. And everything on this, there's a brook that travels right across the back of these lots. It's extremely wet in that whole area. Now. So it's all wetland.
Yeah.
Pretty much back there, so they can't expand anywhere. The same thing with Arlington, he's utilized his full lot as it is, and he's utilizing his lot completely as well too, so. You know, they're not looking to expand anywhere, which I know somebody had a concern before too, which. You know, they're not doing anything further on that,
On your list,
yes,
you show Hill as business, but you want to change it to residence. Is he in favor of that?
he's neutral at the moment as well, so he's. Not as if he's gonna be going out of business he's renting it out at the moment. For multi-purpose, I believe. To the Knack, one of the Knack brothers.
So what's your main concern? For changing it to residential? You're trying to protect those properties, right?
Protect
From
the
what?
properties from bigger businesses or developments moving in. And keeping the traffic down from any more huge commercial or developers coming in to, you know. Kind of take over the area, which we
Okay.
don't believe the road can handle anymore.
Protecting the neighborhood, really.
Protecting the neighborhood and the whole conservation of the area.
So there's no
It's huge.
specific use that you're trying to protect it from? Just
Just commercial industrial,
any business use or that, 'cause that's business up there. It's not commercial industrial. Yeah,
right,
up where we're talking about there.
right. So basically, you know, if it's a small business, which is fine, that's been what's been going on anyway
Mhm.
on this road. But anything that like what has happened with a developer coming in and trying to put in 40 business units in a 7-acre field would consume this wetland area and destroy a natural wildlife tract. That's whole area is huge habitat between Yale and the conservation area that we have.
And just a quick clarification, so you're concerned about businesses moving in. That would only really happen if the current property owners sold their land, though, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
Or development.
yep,
right.
or if they themselves wanted to develop their land, but then they would have to move, I guess, so.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to come to you anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
So, we just were worried about a huge development, you know, coming in like had happened.
Yep.
Which was total surprise, I mean, I don't think it can handle that.
So let's see, on the right side there of your map, you
Mhm.
know, starting with lot 29, because number 30 is DOT, that's gonna
Yeah,
remain.
yeah, these are both DOT,
They've got
29 is DOT,
29 is DOT as well, and 28, 27, 26,
Those
24,
residential.
23. So all of those lots backed up against that little brook,
yep,
they aren't big enough to sustain any business anyway. I mean,
Exactly.
They're gonna remain, yeah, so
right,
they would remain residential most likely. No
Right.
business gonna build there. So then you have BDM, the next one, which is already business now.
yeah,
Are they probably gonna stay business? They're
exactly,
gonna build a house in there. Then you
Yeah.
got the self-storage next up there, right? That's probably gonna stay business, not gonna build any houses up there.
right,
Then you've got the subdivision there as 20-1.
Yeah.
Which is still a buildable lot. Then you've got the 19 and 18, which have houses on them right there, which probably unless they bought that 20-1, they aren't gonna expand out there at all. So you've got that whole right side there, which is gonna remain residential regardless of what happens. Regardless of whether
Right.
you change it to residential or leave it to business. So your remark about now on the left-hand side there, you've got lot number 5, 6, and 7. Possibly something could happen in there, I suppose. They're bigger lots. It's not wet down in there, so that's a possibility there. They've
not
got-
wet up there, and it's
Not-
most
not
lot of
well.
ledge, and, but, you know, Yale Forest is great.
Yeah, so And number 13, isn't that Yale as well?
Yes, it is,
So nothing's gonna happen there. Then
Right.
you've got Hill, which is already business.
yes,
Then you've got your house, which actually is business. You're running a business out of there.
small business, yeah.
Yeah, it's a business anyways. And then you've got lot 16, which is residence, and then it moves up to the
Deal for it.
really Yale Forest. So you've still got, only one. You've got lot number 16, which is residence, which could go to a small business, not a very big lot, could go to a small business. And then you've got down closer towards the bottom there, 7, 6, and 5 possibly could go to a business there. Again, there's not very much that's gonna go to a business unless they sell, of course, but you've got those guys in the commercial industrial, 6, 7.
Yeah, those are
5.
all, yeah, that's all in commercial industrial,
Yeah.
which is kind of
So-
crazy, even these over here.
It sort of is, but from the property owner's standpoint, the value of their land is worth more in that district because of what can go on to it, if they wanted to sell their property there. Again, it's all in the value of it as to what you can put on it, the
Right.
restrictions on it would decrease the value of your property.
These people here, are you talking about?
I'm talking about those, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
why are they not colored in? You've got them proposed as
residents,
residents. So
Yeah,
why
residents.
do you not have them colored in?
I just blocked them around just to make sure you knew that those were in the commercial zone.
Okay,
You just
okay,
didn't
but you're
color them.
proposing that they
Yeah,
be
that's it.
part of.
Everything from here is all
Yeah.
residential.
Got it.
So,
So
and
the-
those are all single family homes, and they don't have any intention of selling or, starting a
Yep.
business.
Again, means they,
And they're happy,
Retained as-
they're fine with the change, they've signed off on it already,
but I'm saying,
they'd rather have it be zone residential.
but only because of what the
They wanna
Don't
safeguard
care.
from having any more heavier traffic.
larger businesses in there, you're talking about
Yeah,
big businesses, yeah.
Yeah,
And again, with those lot sizes up there aren't gonna be too many big businesses going in up there unless, what is it, Yale Forest there, isn't it?
This is all Yale Forest?
yeah,
So Yale Forest is not under permanent conservation, they could
No,
decide
they
to
aren't.
sell tomorrow.
I know they could, we've spoken to them a bunch of times on that property, all down through Route 10, and they never have any intentions of selling it or doing anything with it.
right.
So what I'm hearing you say, Scott, is that because it's currently a business district that's functioning as a residence district, that there's no, because of the size of the lots, there's no danger or there's no likelihood that even that if it were to, that there would be a conversion to the zoned use, given the size of the lots,
Of
and
what-
therefore it would be sensible to maintain the existing business.
Well, I don't know about, we haven't gotten that far, whether
Okay,
it's sensible
okay.
to maintain it, but I'm just running down the reasons why that they want that changed up there, what they think is going in, what they think is gonna happen to clarify what we're doing here. or what
Because-
we're proposing.
In the whereas the text here, I think some really compelling points are made that are more overarching than specific lots. Talking about Base Hill Road being a class 5 road and a local collector. And making the point that all other local collector roads in town are residential and or rural roads.
I don't know that for a fact.
I knew, but there's a section, the only exception to that is there is a section of the Westport Village Road between Effendi's and the bridge or something that is also zoned business, but it's the same as Base Hill Road, there's really not a lot of businesses there, it's more of a neighborhood.
Yep, and again, those businesses there are probably gonna stay there that are in that business zone. now.
Right. Yeah, the big commercial guys,
And they seem to be doing okay with that road, regardless of its size, I guess.
yeah.
Yep.
They
And there's
haven't
no
gotten any
through,
bigger,
no
they-
through truck traffic, but you still get truck traffic. through there,
Oh, I watched an 18-wheeler.
Which has nothing to do with rezoning. I mean, we're
Right,
gonna be able to
there's
stop
like
that.
an 18-wheeler went through with a tanker truck at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I
It's like,
know.
okay, you're not delivering on the road here, but I've watched it all the time.
Yeah, I
you
don't know.
know,
I wouldn't
it's
dare drive
serious.
something like that on that road. I know that's a skinny little road.
Shortcut to go between.
I know,
Yeah.
I do,
You can't
Yeah.
stop.
right, so we wanna prevent any more, big operations coming in,
So
that's the point.
there's also a possibility of putting it, you mentioned small businesses perhaps, but not big businesses. There's
Right.
also a possibility of rezoning it to business one, which will, like we just did in North Swansea over there, which doesn't allow some of the larger things in there, but allows the smaller neighborhood type of businesses to go in there. That's a possibility.
Small businesses aren't people able to run small business in a residential area as it is?
Home occupations, but not small businesses, right? You know, it has to go through the
Right.
planning process. Small
So
business.
basically, we'd rather just keep it all residential like we're planning. Like to go that route.
Can I, just a quick, comment on this, our ongoing, court. Our ongoing court, relationship with, all-purpose storage. I see in the proposal that you would like to rezone their property residence. And then there's a rural agricultural and then there's a
Which,
wetlands.
which I wasn't sure legally what you can do or can't do, so.
I don't know for sure. I would
Right.
have to talk to
Yeah.
people who are higher above me,
Mhm.
but I would give my opinion that that whole property, those three properties are out of bounds. And I would say put a big red line around it and I wouldn't want to touch those. But that's just my opinion. I can get clarification on that, but I don't believe those should be included. in the
Which
rezoning
three
proposal.
that,
You talking about,
All,
28?
all-purpose store, so 2021-1 and 21.
right, so we're still in. Court
Just
about it.
due to ongoing legal concerns, I don't believe that those properties should be touched. However, I'm not,
Okay.
you don't have to go through me to do this. so
Right,
I
so
just.
you
my
never
opinion.
know down the road what
Yeah.
that decision becomes, and then it can be evolved from there, I would think.
Yep,
So the
So, yeah,
town
that was-
can still vote to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the town can still, and as a body, vote to put that residential over there. But it means that the developer will probably take it to court and win because of what you just said.
yeah,
So that's
I-
kind of a
I know there's
clarification of
a
what can happen.
slippery
It's
spot there, I
What
get
you're
it.
doing, you're taking that property from $100,000 value per acre, and you're dropping it to like $3,000 or $4,000. So you're actually stealing money from the person that owns that property.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's not a good idea. We'd lose that battle in court, I'm sure. We'd spend a bunch of money defending it, but we'd lose it.
I just think that whole property, that you just put a big red line around it, just not touch it. That would be my opinion, of course.
So could we just zone it, those lots business and leave it, everything else
I
alone?
wouldn't even touch it. I wouldn't even propose anything for those lots, just keep them as they are.
Right, which is business.
If they're business, yep, they're
Okay.
business, I would just leave them
So
business.
basically, we're gonna just zone, we would zone lot 14, 22, 20, and 21. Just business, and everything else is residential.
Don't just a haphazard way of doing it. You know, like spot zoning is what that's called, you know.
Right, but I
zone
think
here,
it
zone here.
deserves a consideration because considering the road. You're not dealing with just Swansea, you gotta be considerate of Keens end as well, I think,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe, but
overall.
you know, they aren't supposed to be going through, so Keene shouldn't have anything to do with it. It should be coming back through here, and if they do go through, it has nothing to do.
Yeah,
with
that
us.
doesn't happen.
No,
You
but
know,
again,
it's a split road, which
it's
is
an
pretty
enforcement,
odd,
it's enforcement and
yeah.
nothing else.
So one point I think I'll make is, you know, because of the wetlands there and the significance of those wetlands. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to have a lot less risk when it's residential versus commercial or business, whatever. You know, I think a lot of times with depending on the type of businesses in there, people just get a little bit more forgetful and there's more chance of hazardous materials or, you know, things leaking. And so that's just one concern. I think it's an important point to make.
Well, lots of things could happen, you know, are we seeing that,
Yeah.
you know? Are we seeing chemicals leaking into the wetlands over the last 10 years, 20 years, 15 years? I don't know. You know, the planning board addresses those problems pretty well, I would say, throughout the years, as far as hazardous things, oil storage tanks, fuel oil, all that type of stuff, when we do a site plan. And I haven't heard of that happening in any of the wetlands, even though it could happen, but again, lots of things could happen.
Yeah.
You know, their whole industry is built on that. The insurance industry is built on what things could happen, but
That's why it's called planning, right? You're planning for the future for what could happen.
We are planning, yeah, and use the planning board in the site plan approval to see that that doesn't happen. But it's a good piece of land up there. Again, what Adam brought up about it being in litigation there, of course. You know, the town, like I say, the town can vote it in there, whatever happens there, but the town will have to defend it and most likely lose if it goes to court. But bringing down to the rest of it there, they're just, in my opinion, there aren't enough properties there that are gonna be developed into the businesses that you're trying to keep out of there. You know, it could be, you know, you could have a little pocket of residential down there in the industrial zone there, commercial industrial. To me, it doesn't make any sense if they aren't gonna sell, which they probably maybe never will sell, who knows? But if they aren't gonna sell anyways, it's just gonna remain the way it is. The only property that may change is the one that started this whole thing, which is up there. Those storage units there. And if that's residential, I do believe that could still go with a special exception for multifamily in there. So even if you're residential, you could get something in there. You probably will get something. But you're probably gonna get a business in there since it's under litigation. But again, getting back to the zoning there part of it. I see your point. I see what you guys are talking about, what you want to keep out of the big things there, because it's a residential neighborhood, which I would too. And that was the whole idea of North Swanzey with that business one, what was done over there was because of that. And that's a possibility. You might want to consider using business one over there. I don't know. And again, it's a planning board. You're in here discussing with the planning board whether we decide to do it or not. You can still go to it with the voters with 25 signatures. I think is all you need. Put it on the warrant.
Yep.
Just as it is. So we're just giving you our opinion on it.
Right, I know, that's what I wanted to make sure. You said you consider that, but I was hoping that you kind of could see how obvious.
I can see that's obvious, but I can see also it's obvious that it's gonna pretty much remain the same with the size of those lots, and you've got the restrictions with the wetlands behind, especially those lots on the right hand side.
So if it remains the same, why not?
Yeah.
Zone it residential, that doesn't
Right, you
make sense
could.
to me,
You
that
could.
why wouldn't you just change it?
And it's
Yeah.
fine for you to do that. I don't think the planning board should start doing spot zoning because we're gonna have people in here all the time on, well, you did it for them, we're gonna do it for this, and you have a little spot zoning all over the place. It doesn't have to be business, even though it's zone business, it doesn't mean that business is gonna be there, as you can see, it's residential, a lot of it.
Right. So basically, if we just zone it all residential. And then the guys that are there now running their commercial businesses, they do what they're doing. Like they have
Well,
been,
It takes away from their property, you're taking their property by doing that. You're taking what they can do with the business there. Yeah, they're running a business fine right now, but when they want to change it, if they want to change it, or if they want to sell it or something like that. Then they're restricted, or if they don't use the property for a year, then it returns to that residential zone, and then it's no business anymore for them.
right. So we're not seeing anybody having a conflict with that, from what conversations I've had with both of those people in those business lots.
Yeah.
So Arlington's not gonna move, he's not changing, he's not gonna go out of business. And Andy is trying to clean up his lot and probably sell it. But not intentionally for business,
For residential,
probably.
Which one is that?
It's a brown zone at the moment,
that's the hill
Is that the
construction
hill
over
one?
there,
Yeah.
on that side there.
and technically, it's probably a brown zone at this point.
Maybe
And
so.
nobody's probably even been over there to test the water samples from off of that lot.
Well, I think I mentioned to you before that last meeting we had there that turning those into residential, that when they're business now makes them non-conforming. And anything they want to do, that includes your lot too.
Yeah.
Anything they want to do, you have to go to the zoning board of adjustment for, not a special exception, for a variance to make any change to the business at all.
Okay.
And that's not,
It's much harder to get.
yeah, but it's supposed to be hard to get, so you can't do things.
You gotta show a,
Hardship.
what do we call it,
Hardship.
Yeah.
You gotta show hardship.
a hardship. Yeah, prove a hardship.
So what kind of changes are we talking? Because I don't see anything being changed in those lots.
You mean change as far as business goes?
Right,
I'm talking about change of use. Yeah, the lots are probably gonna stay the same size.
right,
But as far as uses go, if you bring them down to residential, there are far fewer uses business wise that they could do on those lots there. Or if they wanted to expand their business, if they wanted to
Put an addition on.
go higher or, yeah, maybe put an addition or add a little building somewhere else. They wouldn't be able to do it. unless
They
it went
have
to
to come to you
ZBA.
anyway, though,
Well, they
right?
have to go to the ZBA first to get a variance before they come to the planning board. They'd have to come to the planning board afterwards, because they are a business still in residential zone.
Yeah.
But it removes from them the ability to do that, change it, or if they wanted to change the type of business there as well.
Yeah, because I don't see that happening.
No,
I don't see that being a problem, period.
Do
I
you,
think they probably would.
do you
if-
prepare trustee ruler? I'm wondering what the length of Base Hill Road is in the proposed.
I don't have it, and it wouldn't work on that anyways, my ruler wouldn't work on it, but I don't have it with me. I
Does
got it.
anybody
The length of
know?
the road.
Yeah.
It's a
Adam
mile
can
and
tell
a
us.
half.
Adam can tell.
Yeah, I can tell you.
And we're a half a mile in Swansea, and the rest of the road in Keene is a mile.
Okay, so this is half a mile.
We
What
have
we're
a
looking
half
at
a
is
mile,
half a mile.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
From the Keene line to
Route 9.
Route 10 is about 3/4 of a mile,
Okay.
so not quite a mile, but 0.71.
From Route 10 to the Keene line.
Mhm.
And then from, what about from the Keene line to Route 9?
Oh,
Is that even on your map?
oh boy, Route 9. I'm not, oh, I mean, they don't go into Keene, I don't.
Because from Swansea line to the Route 10, I have it blocked that as a half a mile.
Swansea to Route 9 is like 0.8. If you take out if you're just going a straight line, it's like 0.9, but
So it's almost a mile.
almost one.
Right. Okay.
Roughly.
And let's see, and the zoning in Keene is all residential, or I think there are a couple other uses there,
Low
but
density, single family.
that, yeah, conservation, I think,
Yeah.
conservation land in there,
Yeah.
low
I
density.
did talk about that.
And there aren't any businesses up in there either,
No,
so that's a difference as well. There are already businesses here in this part of it. So I guess that doesn't have much to do with what we're doing here.
Does it make sense to have a motion to move this to business with the exception of 20, I mean, to residential with the exception of 20/1 and 21? Have a public hearing and see what the public has to say?
It depends what you want to do. If you don't want, if you want it strictly residential, then, the planning board can do that, but there'd be two separate items if we did that.
Okay.
She'd have one for residential, we'd have one for business, and it'd be real confusing then for people to.
Yeah, no, I actually, I
But
meant
yeah, I'm,
to change it
it's
to
a business one, you said, you did-
I meant residential.
residential. And which lots are that? Are they?
Well, everything from lot 5 on up, with the exception of the 3 that we should not deal with at this time.
14, yeah,
Or
oh, yeah,
20.
BDM 22,
20.
yeah, 20 and 20 down.
21.
Yep.
Yeah,
2 and 14. Are okay with whatever at the moment, from what I've had discussions with both of them.
So your point being just to give the public a chance to
yeah,
weigh
I
in
think,
before.
I think
anything-
more information might be helpful. I don't know if it makes sense to do that or not, but.
I guess it depends if the group wants to do it. I think we should leave it alone, but we can, if you want to make a motion there and you get a second, we can vote on to whether you bring it to a public hearing or not. That means if we have a public hearing, that means we have to have the proposal of what we're gonna do, obviously.
Right.
And that
I
means,
basically I'll easily have 25 signatures to put it on.
so,
just
yeah,
to let you know.
to go on that
can
like that.
happen. That's gonna happen.
so, yeah, if,
And that's fine.
if
Right.
maybe that's the route you ought to take then like that, just to see and let the voters,
Right, and they
Decide
can
on it.
figure it out from there. and
Yeah.
If they have questions, we can.
have your neighbors talk to your neighbor, and their neighbors and all
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
So I've spoken to almost everybody on the road already.
Yeah, then it wouldn't be the planning board spot zoning, it would be the public spot zoning. So-
Right.
And that we have nothing to do with that.
Well, and I think the planning board's approval or disapproval needs to go on to the amendment as well.
It does, yeah, and we still have to have a public hearing with
Yes,
your
we're
amendment,
still so far away.
but we can't change it.
Yeah.
Just have the public hearing, that's all.
Yeah.
Members, that way, we shall do,
Sounds good.
okay,
I'm in favor of this, and I'm in favor of it because I think we ought to identify it as what it actually is. I don't see any downside. If
But
it
it is
already
both.
is
it's
residential,
both though, it's business there too, you know, I mean,
but
that's,
it's primarily residential.
I guess, so.
Residential outweighs the business.
Yeah, and I see what you're doing, and yeah, it wouldn't make me jump off the roof if it were, zone residential, really, but just from planning perspective, I'd like to see it left alone. That's all. And that's your aerial from
Yeah.
is that looking from Keene?
It's
Yeah, it
right
is,
from
from
the
Keene.
end, yeah,
It is, okay.
and this is basically
And that's that big field there that brought this whole thing up.
7 acre.
Big field.
And this is the wetlands that I don't think anybody gets to see, so it's pretty big.
Yeah, and nothing ever gonna happen to those. No building going on in there, anything that's always gonna stay there regardless of the zone.
I mean, and then, back of Arlington's lot is right here,
Yeah,
and he's utilizing what he can, and then all of this,
so he's not
It's still-
expanding, so you aren't gonna get any more traffic off of him.
right,
So that's gonna remain the same.
yeah.
So I don't see,
I remember the wet, I walked that lot, and I remember the wetland delineation is right to the property line.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That's a concern for me.
well, then they would, if they developed it, they'd have to get it. Well, they did have a soil scientist in there. That's right. I walked that lot too. But they'd have to get a soil scientist certify where that delineation was.
But one of the things we'll be talking about next week is, buffers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Curious as to when this got its own business. Couldn't find a definitive date. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but I was.
I'm curious too. Well, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Do we want to set a date? For what, for the public hearing, or do we want to wait till we have signatures?
So let's wait till we get something. Got it.
Find out how soon or how late it can go before. Or to be able to get it onto the warrant. For March.
Let them decide it, let them figure.
There's, I mean, it's in January,
They have, yeah, it's not February.
it might be February. Yeah, we can have public hearings up until our last meeting in January or first meeting in February. I have dates, I just don't remember off the top of my head. But her first date to propose the zoning amendment was November 11th, so we're still in the beginning stage. It's only-
No.
So
Right.
Sherry,
Yeah.
if you wanna, you wanna get on it, and get those signatures pretty soon, because we're just discussing, the planning board is limited as to how close to the public, to voting we can hold the public hearings.
Okay.
So get on it sooner than later.
I have dates, I'll send them to you
That'd be
in an
great.
email.
Okay.
I don't have them off the top of my head, but I have them, so I'll email you tonight with those dates.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, thanks. So we have, mixed use development, general discussion. We have some things in our packet about mixed use, so what is this about, Al?
It's about a lot of things. It's about, let me get to it.
Oh, yeah, you're doing minutes, yeah,
Sorry, so
take a look.
okay, so here's where this whole thing started, I guess. Currently, the Business and Economic Affairs Department, New Hampshire State Department, is rolling out a program called Housing Champions. That essentially we can apply to be designated as housing champions, even though Swanzey has built the most multifamily housing of any small town in New Hampshire, we still have to apply
In the world.
we still have to apply for this designation. What this designation does is it opens up more routes to funding for developers who want to build. It's a good thing. It doesn't cost us anything to apply for it, and it's not a competitive application. We apply for it, we get the designation if we get enough points, and then more funding opportunities become available to us. That's it. Where some sticking points come into play is we don't have a lot of what they want to see a town have as far as ordinances go. One sticking point is a mixed use zoning ordinance, not saying we need an ordinance. We don't even have anything saying mixed use. And so we were looking at this and we're figuring out how can we submit a better application to Invest NH to get this housing champion designation, right? We can adopt more of the policies they want to see people adopt. So we can define mixed use for an example. I wanted to spark a conversation. I think in the future, in order to get some more funding opportunities at the federal level, we need to change some things in our ordinance. We need to adopt ordinances and we need to become more flexible with what uses we allow in what districts. Just wanted to see what the grid and we wanted to use mixed use as a jumping off point for that. We allow mixed use in VB2 right now. It's not called mixed use, but we allow multifamily commercial business uses. That's just allowed in VB2, right? So we could add in our definition of VB2, we could add, this is a mixed use zone district. That's scary, but
And then we have to define it, obviously.
and then we would have to define it. We would need to add a definition for mixed use, which could be any number of definitions. There's a lot of our sister cities, have them.
Primary residence, primary non-residence.
Yep, so we would need to define it, and then we would also need to say in that definition or in the zone definitions, what if it's supposed to go there. So another thing we could do is in the business district, just as an example, if you want to build mixed use, instead of getting a special exception for your multifamily, it would be allowed by right if you're doing mixed use. If you're not doing mixed use, you have to get a special exception. Just taking down roadblocks to putting up more creative developments, essentially.
So what they're saying is that we will pay you money to alter your ordinance to the way we think it should be.
Not pay us money, but
They're paying somebody money
there, more funding, more funding would become available is how.
to
they
the,
word it.
to the builders then, not to the town, right?
Well, we would apply for it on their behalf.
Yeah, so.
And it would make it easier for them to develop in Swanzey, essentially. So it would be attracting businesses to Swanzey. It's
No, probably multifamily,
Yeah.
since they're talking about mixed use, they wanted to add residential and get more uses for residential. And we're doing pretty good on that, as you mentioned before, we're doing pretty good in that.
we are doing very well in that.
So, I don't know, I think our ordinance is okay without it, seems how we've attracted a lot of multifamily here to begin with, without that, without taking their care.
Yeah, and so I don't disagree with that at all. I wanted to bridge the topic because we don't have multifamily listed in our ordinance. And I think we're one of the few
Mixed
municipalities.
use, right?
Sorry, sorry.
Yeah,
mixed
I'm
use.
just keeping you straight.
Mixed use.
Because you're keeping the minutes there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add that.
This is I'm going back in the recording on this one. So we don't have mixed use mentioned at all in our ordinance.
Yeah,
And so if we wanted to try to get in line with other smaller municipalities that do have mixed use, this is a good opportunity to do so. Right now, we kind of go. And I think it's fine that we don't do everything they're doing, right? That's fine. I'm cool with that. But if we at least define it, that maybe opens up an avenue to do it in the future.
let's see how it works. Let's see how it works out for them first. I mean,
Yeah.
This is probably something new with this new funding for the mixed use and that type of stuff. So.
Yeah.
Let's see how it works out for them.
If the funding was to help with the town services and the infrastructure, but the town, needs to support stuff like that,
Way back to.
Back to impact.
then that resonates with me.
Yes.
I feel like, as far as the big box structures, I think we gotta let the smoke clear and see, where it lands.
Yeah.
Right, I'd love to see more, single family residential, that type of
Yeah,
stuff go
me
up.
too.
I think
Yeah.
that really makes for a very nice, classy,
Yep.
community.
It does,
You know?
and people are putting roots down in the community, when you buy a single family, whereas you being in one of these high-rise apartment, you aren't putting roots down in the community.
So mixed uses, having that, series of retail or service shops and apartments above it. I'm okay with that,
Mhm.
but.
And to be
I think
fair-
As far as the big stuff, I think we gotta just take a deep breath for.
Yeah.
Right, so two things. One, where? Where
What?
where are you going to do this?
Which
Our,
districts?
available land is not really conducive to something like that, but
It would be
my second thing is. If we apply or we got these funds, what are the attachments?
Changing your
I
ordinance.
don't know yet.
And doing
that's
what they
one,
say,
But what other things come along with federal money?
that's probably enough. They want, you know, when
Yeah,
people put the
I'm not-
loud in
yeah,
your
seriously.
The stuff they need to do, the big push, people are gonna watch what's going on, and the big push is to increase density. To do away with single family homes. That's the question. In this state. There's one reason why I did not like the government we have now, but she was a better choice than the one that ran against her. Instead of anything worse.
She's probably watching now, you know,
All right.
That's why.
watching our meetings.
So this program, the Housing Champions
Yes.
program, that's a New Hampshire program
It
or a
is.
federal
I think
program?
it's a New Hampshire, yeah,
Okay.
You
yeah,
mentioned federal dollars.
BEA, yes, so New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic
The
Affairs.
administrator,
Okay.
maybe.
Sorry, yeah, so, again, we're gonna do this anyway because it's cost us nothing. It's just cost some time and we don't
Get the
have,
designation?
yes,
Okay,
yeah, we get a designation. We might not even qualify. We might not get enough points to qualify, even though we built the housing. That's kind of the frustrating part. We've already built the housing. We
Right.
still might not qualify because we don't have these ordinances in place. We have an ADU ordinance. That's one thing they want to see. They want to see a manufactured housing ordinance, which we have that listed in our ordinance. So I think we can qualify for that. But there's a lot of areas where we don't necessarily qualify. And I think this is trying to get us back. I think this is trying to get us into the modern day with some of this stuff. Where mixed use is a very common way to do that, where if you want to build a coffee shop and some apartments above it, you should be able to.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you be able to, right?
right. So,
You can now, it's just a special exception.
so your thinking about this
Mhm.
is that you're going to apply to get this designation.
Yeah,
Um,
not until the spring.
and what will accrue to Swansea if we do succeed in getting that designation?
Maybe nothing. It depends on who wants to build in Swansea. And then,
Okay.
yeah,
And is there certain zones that you put this in, or?
no, it just Swansea would be a quote housing champion, which.
But if it's mixed use, okay.
Well, mixed use
Go
is
ahead.
one of the
Sorry.
areas, yeah.
In one of the areas, but
Yeah.
mixed use would have to be somewhere in the business area. Because
So-
we're talking about business and residential.
The problem with mixed use is that it's usually its own zone district, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a mixed use zone
Oh,
district.
yeah.
We're not adding mixed use zone district. I'm not saying we were gonna add a mixed use zone district.
Okay.
I'm saying it's probably gonna go in, VB2 is already a mixed use zone district. It's not called it, but it is one. We allow,
Functionally, yeah.
it is, we allow multifamily, commercial business all by right. You
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
You can build, go forth and prosper as a mixed use right now. The mill is a great example of that, you know, so. That would just be functionally our mixed use zone district, and then we would take down some barriers in existing districts, possibly.
I'm just not clear yet
It-
why we want this designation.
It's all about lowering barriers to entry, so.
But we haven't really had too many barriers for entry, if you look at what we've done.
That's true, they have had to, some of these projects have had to get variances. Some of these variances are, I mean, so one of them in the industrial park district. That was a strange one.
Mhm.
But this essentially is just lowering the barriers. I mean, if you want to build something and you have the land to build it. I think the thought is you should be able to build it.
The barriers are the regulatory steps that you would have to take
So you shouldn't need a special
by
exception. You should-
zoning board or planning
Yeah.
board.
Essentially, yeah.
Maybe we can set up.
Well, planning board is still, planning board's always gonna be a constant.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
gotta go
So
through
it's
the
just
planning
Zoning board, zoning
Really
board.
just zoning.
Goes through us first, so.
Yeah.
Before it gets in there, Richard.
I just want to be sure that if we got that designation, that is not going to be used as a leverage to put in something or to go
It
into
would.
something.
It would.
Yeah.
As far as I can see, it would be.
Yeah, so I mean, think, what guardrails would we want to have?
By not doing it. That's the.
Exactly.
That's the guardrail about that high. not doing it. Or unless we put it over on Base Hill Road. Which is probably watching. Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm leery of that type of thing.
I don't know this to be fact, but I think when you get state funding or federal funding, and some of that overrides our own ordinances.
Or in a state precedent.
Is that what?
Unless the
happens?
state changes it. The state could, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Mike, the state can change.
Right,
it,
is that,
override
is
our
that,
ordinances.
with the, what was the acronym for that?
We're not home rule.
Right, okay.
Right, Billings rules, we read out Billings
Yeah.
rules, which says the state has the ultimate authority.
Yeah.
Right.
We've been trying to change that, with a constitutional amendment, to land use only. We won't do it this year, but the year after that, we're gonna push that again, and when we get it finalized, I'll bring it so you guys can see it. We're gonna push that where the towns have the final say in the land use.
Hmm.
Whatever we wanna do. We're fortunate right now, we now have a slide as a representative,
Mhm.
so.
So, by becoming housing champion, it's a silly term, but, by doing that, we then become eligible for 2 additional sources of funding, infrastructure funding and per unit production grants.
We being Swansea or
Swansea.
the developer becomes.
Well, I think the thought is if you need to make infrastructure improvements to build the development, you
Got
could
it.
get funding. So just for an example, if you wanted to build something, but our sewer didn't go to that property.
Yeah.
Then you could get a grant to then build sewer to the property. You know, something like that.
And then we.
Or
Okay, there's
because that
sewers.
capacity, that's a whole separate
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah, the West Swansea sewer, yeah, that's a whole separate issue, but. Yeah,
I don't know, I'm feeling kind of burned by
Yeah.
the pace of what's happened in the past couple of years, right? And it's
Well,
due to happen.
if you've seen the prices of these units, I think I would agree with you, because these units are in crazy prices.
These units, which units?
I forgot which one it was, I was off of 12, but the prices for a 1 bedroom was like 2,000.
For rent.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
rent, so if the rents aren't going, if we're building more and the rents aren't going down.
Yeah, yeah. What's,
I don't
They
understand.
have a bunch of people, apartments, they start at 1,000 for a studio.
wow,
But I think we already allow mixed use in VB2. So essentially, a lot of these criteria, it would make it easier for people to build. That's full stop. If we enact these ordinances, it makes
They're
it,
struggling.
Well, if it was,
Yeah.
I'm with Mark, if it was easier for them to build single family homes, then I think I'd be for it.
well, they're not taking away that ability. to build
No,
single-
but I mean, they are pushing towards that, they're pushing towards something different.
Yeah,
Plus
plus-
to get rid of single family homes.
Increased
nationwide.
density.
So,
And might have different thoughts about that if you had a whole bunch of developers coming in, buying up farmland and putting
Right.
up big, developments, you might think differently, but we don't have that neither. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and there's ways to resolve that, just increase the zoning lot size.
Increase the sewer, I mean, gotta go out
Yeah,
there
the
and the
sewer,
water,
yeah.
and then they follow it, yep.
So,
all right, good. This was just the poll interest.
Yeah.
Poll the interest.
and
Okay.
what was your
By
result?
consensus, I
Yep.
think that,
Yeah.
yes, it's probably, no.
I do, yeah, and I still think we're going to, I mean, if we get the designation that we don't have to do anything with it, but.
But you probably won't be looking for a letter of recommendation from the planning board, right, to go along with that?
Yeah.
Well, we don't need pleasure.
Don't get us in trouble.
Yeah,
Don't dig a hole for us.
yeah.
If you
So,
If you get the designation, it's going to be a known fact. And can that not be turned around and used as a leverage to force us to do something with it?
we don't have to, we're not being forced to do anything. It just opens up additional funding sources for people who want to build in Swansea. So if they want to build in Swansea and we have this, then we might get some infrastructure improvements if we get a grant for it, like. It's not a bad thing. And you guys are still gonna see the application come into planning board.
We can't deny. It's-
I think infrastructure, I mean, if we get infrastructure improvements because of this, that's a net positive. Obviously not sewer, because we're already at capacity. That
Until
would be
the-
nets, but
It's
So
supposed
what
to-
infrastructure improvements would you like to see?
I don't know. It's not it's not, if we have a development that comes in.
Can I rip this up right now?
No. I encourage you to read about it because it doesn't cost us anything to get the designation and it only opens up sources of funding for people who want to build. And those are taxpayers.
No.
Which I will.
Oh, housing champion New Hampshire. More taxpayers isn't a bad thing.
That brings us past mixed-use development, I think. And
Until next time.
we're into, other business, let's see, how about, Mike, you update us on, the, CIP, and I promise I won't badger you on the witness stand like I did the last time.
Sorry.
You can go into his office and the girl can print them out for you. And it would. On these, you would see a line that says the contributions to cash. That's the line that you tax. That money comes from your taxes. Remember, every year we vote whether to put money into the capital program.
For various capital programs, right, for fire and police,
And that's where
things
the
like that.
impact fees come in, because what we're going to be called in a positive direction for your impact fees. Now, I know this, Scott had a concern about a young family not being able to afford it. Well, we don't have to do those numbers that you saw. We can-
Right,
We
exactly.
can do some better numbers than that, okay? Well, what we did this last week, and we got another week to do a lot of more work too. We did Mount Caesar Library, and the youth edition and elevator is gonna be moved off another year, because those are $150,000 a piece. Okay, so we're moving them over, but they're okay. They gotta have a new they don't have a bathroom on the second floor, so we're gonna try to address that. But other than that, they look pretty, we're gonna put a one-time, well, we're gonna level one, give them 50,000 for 3 years in a row to help that. 300,000 they need for those other two additions. And then it'll go back in 28, it'll go back to 5,000 a year, we'll put in that account. And then on the Stratton Free Library, we didn't change a lot, but we didn't have, we thought it was $14,000 for a balance, but it was actually only 9,000 we were the trustees. So, what we did there, we did a one-time, next year, a one-time increase to 15,000 for the CIP cash contributions, and then a level back up to 5,000 on that.
What do they got going up over there
So
for
they
improvements
have
for
a
that?
HVAC system that they're gonna put in this year. And there's still, we don't have solid numbers, we're giving them 15 for it. Not knowing if that's gonna be enough or not at this point, Stefan thought it would be okay. But there's also a new heating system that's pushed out to the 28th. And they're gonna put mini splits in, so we don't know if we're gonna use, at this point, they gotta come back to us, because they don't know if they're gonna do that as the primary source or and have the boiler as a backup or not. We're assured that the boiler will be okay for a short term, but eventually something has to be done there. And when we got 15 right now, and as a replacement on that. The other thing that we're doing for the range, get that page here. As you know, this last year, at the deliberative meeting, if you went there, we raised $110,000 from the floor, which is a direct, it doesn't come out of the capital cash at all, it's a direct from the taxes. They have one grant they may be getting for windows and stuff, and we're telling them to hold off because the foundation has to be raised, and I think it's like 13 inches or something like that. We told them if we did that, then you're probably gonna destroy the new windows you put in.
What they have to raise it for?
It's sunk in one area.
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
And did
it's
they,
like in the old building,
did they spend that whole $100,000 on that roof?
yes.
They did.
There might be a few dollars left over, but basically, yeah. It's got bid out for that much money, that's what they raised. It's a
Oh, yeah.
little bit of
So you got that much, then it's
Yeah.
gonna cost that much.
Yeah.
Well,
Military rules right
The
there.
foundation is gonna cost about $150,000.
Oh, yeah. then my goodness, they're gonna put it on the
We
foundation.
told them that we will put $75,000 here and match theirs if they can come up with the other 75,000 to their fundraising and grants.
Mhm.
And they brought up, well, what about Wickham Hall, and they don't realize that the taxpayers of Swanzey only pay 23% to be able to get this hall. The rest
yeah.
is done by
Yes.
Mike and his group.
Donations, yeah, I was on that committee, a lot of just
So,
donations from
We
everybody.
directed them to go there. I have tried to work with them myself and show them ways to raise revenue. But they don't want to do it. They had their Bluegrass Festival, as you guys may know, lost money the last 2 years. But they insist on doing it again.
Hmm.
And I said, if you want to do something along that lines, why aren't you going out, there's April Cushman, I don't know how many people know her, and Kelly Down Snow, they're very, very popular in this area. And they would drive Dora Clark, you might have to pay a little bit, but you paid the bluegrass people to come in too. So that's, I went negative both years on that.
It's too bad.
And I mentioned gun raffles, I kind of got, you know,
Didn't like that, huh?
I raised it for my other committee, our Republican committee.
Yeah.
We do gun raffles and we make a ton of money on it.
Yeah.
30 guns in 30 days, you buy a $10 ticket and you can win all 30 days if it's possible. It's possible, don't usually happen, but 1 year I won 2.
It's up to them.
Yeah, so we have to do some more work next week on the road. Rehabilitation stuff, because Weather Hill Road now has an issue. Where we don't know, if we're gonna go to, we gotta shore up the site, because we're afraid the roads, if anybody knows Weather Hill Road, they're gonna fall into the south road. So we gotta shore that up somehow, we don't know how expensive that is yet, so we gotta try to work some money onto that. The other one, the bridge down here. Cost $550,000 more than was actually targeted for. So we gotta try to work, I don't think we can recover all, but we're gonna try to recover what we can.
Put a toll up there.
Yeah.
Well, it's more extensive than damage than I thought it was.
I don't know, did you see it when they were working on it? I walked
Yeah.
across that every single
Me
day.
too.
And there wasn't that much damage,
No.
and they took it out and. Where they I don't know if you saw how they replaced the cracks and that in there, and some of the new cement. The crack line followed it right in the new cement there, which. Whether or not it hurt anything, I doubt it, because I'm sure they inspected it before they
You
covered it
know,
over.
when you have work with roads, it's gonna cost
Yeah.
tons of money.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a lot more than I always
It's
thought.
one year, some of the people on my level and farm wanted to the town to pay them. So I wouldn't sign it because I know what it costs. It cost $1 million for half a mile of pavement. Because you have to lay down the bed. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, well,
But that's what we got.
that's where you're at, huh? Okay,
That's
good.
one reason why I want the impact fees, because I think we can really help this program. And make a positive effect on people's taxes.
We're starting right in March. I got it on my list.
I did give everybody the RSA that covers that, so you can look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Review what we have to do. And also, we're talking about the young couples that want to build a single family home. We can, I believe, I'll look into a little bit more, Adam, that we can put a waiver program in there. Where if somebody really doesn't have the money, the select board would have the opportunity to reduce the fee or forgive the fee on an individual basis.
They can do that anyway, right? They abate people's taxes if you come in.
Well, it has to be in the RSA.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can lower the taxes if they can.
But it's not in the RSA, it's not in the RSA, or it is in the RSA about the selectmen having the authority.
The stuff, yeah, it's, I believe
It
it
is in
is. I read something about it, but I want to do some more reading on it. I, like you, Scott, I got too many committees going on right now.
Quit, right? Say, yeah, I'm done. We're gonna be done pretty soon. And it brings us to the other committees. Let's see, we got the fire committee, actually, the new fire station committee. Where we're at now is that the architect has come back with the plans. And we were at the selectmen's meeting last night, presented it to them. And they took a look at it, and I guess they think it's okay. So we're gonna meet with the architect on Monday and with the site guy on Monday. And to see if we can't figure out what it's gonna cost to build it. And then get that. That's the last thing that we need. The committee is gonna put out short, like 2-minute long segments on the Facebook page. I think it is, isn't it, Mark? Facebook page, Swanzey Facebook page.
On the town of Swansea's.
It'll be, I think,
Yeah,
on the
Facebook
town of
page,
Swansea
or-
page, but there'll be links from Facebook pages or other social media sites.
Mark and Jay worked on that, and they put a nice video together, or several of them. We saw a preview of them. They're gonna be out until January.
I'd say Mark, J, and J worked on that.
And what?
Mark, J, and J.
And Jay.
Jay really,
Yeah, he did a lot.
He did a lot.
He did a lot on there.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Voter for education.
So that's what's going on. Yeah, it's gonna explain what the committee's
sometimes I'm
doing.
just motivation.
We're also gonna have on Saturdays, we're gonna have open houses at
Station
Station
2,
2, so
Yeah.
we'll see what we're talking about.
and that'll be noted on those. So in January, at some point, we expect those to come out, and by that time, there should be a bit of a figure as to what it's gonna cost to build it, so that can go along with it, and then It'll be on to town meeting after that.
Right
So
now,
good.
at CMPC, we've got 3.75 as a placeholder until we find out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're hoping it's gonna be a little bit less than that,
Yeah.
as
We took-
it should
we
be.
took the middle approach.
Yeah.
That's a good number now.
So that's where we're at, and it might be that the committee won't be doing too much after that. So that might be good. And there, the TIF committee, which is right from here, the tax increment finance district down here. We're looking at, again, that's for the water company, mainly for the town to somehow purchase that water company over there. So right now, we're looking at the possibility of, if the town does it, to run a pipe over to Viewpoint with like 100 homes over there and hook Viewpoint up and get like 100 more users on it right off the bat. And if the town takes it over, it'll be useless without extra storage, because it's at storage capacity. I think I've told you before, it's a storage capacity for the tank. It's not at that production capacity. That well will put out way more water than we'd ever probably use. But storage, we have to have storage there. So another thing being considered is putting a water tower up behind Viewpoint up there and tying right into their system, backfeeding it into our system, if it ends up being our system, and creating system that way. So we're gonna meet on Tuesday, I think it is. And they've spoken, I think Mike Brandley probably, and one of the selectmen spoke to Viewpoint up there, and they had a little meeting on it, and I don't know what came out of that, but we're gonna find out. So that's where it's at.
I
That's,
believe the Russ almost don't hand up the back there.
yeah, so
Might be a place you might want to contact to, if they want to put a tower.
we'll see if there's, see how much Viewpoint the water owns up there, because the other point, let's see, they had talked about Christian Hill for a water tower over here. And Christian Hill are on this side of the river, and it looks like Christian Hill's probably out because there's not a whole heck of a lot. You're gonna run a whole bunch of pipe up there, and there aren't gonna be very many houses that's gonna go by to hook up there. But Christian Hill is about 85 feet higher than the back lot of Viewpoint. So if you wanted the same water capacity, same water pressure, which would be about 78 pounds if you're gonna put it up on top of Christian Hill, just with gravity, we'd have to put it on like an 80-foot tower back there to get the same amount. So if it's not put on a tower, just a tank using pressure wise, we'd probably get around, say, 50 pounds of pressure, gravity out of it, but there's still pressure tanks. Viewpoint has their own pressure tanks there. And the water company has one 10,000 gallon pressure tank. It looks like Viewpoint's, I think, maybe two 10,000 or two 5,000, but anyway, that's extra capacity there too, so that's being considered. So it might be that might be the way to do it over there, and they're looking at funding to extend a municipal water system to that community over there, which needs water.
Are they on wells? Each lot is on a.
No, they've got their own wells. Viewpoint dug their own, I think it's 1 or 2 wells up there.
Okay, so it'd be replacing, so there are lines.
And they're within like less than a quarter of a mile from these wells here, and they don't have enough water.
Okay,
Quarter mile away, you've got so much water that you don't know what to do with it. So,
But you never know.
well, it has to do with there, and the mill put their wells in that coarse gravel area up there. They had it, whoever did that survey for them knew what they were doing to put those wells there, because just a little ways away in that the aquifer is under that whole area. It's just that it doesn't transverse through the ground very quickly up where Viewpoint is. Whereas where the mill put theirs, it's real heavy gravel in there, and it transfers quickly through there, and it just replenishes all the time. So whoever did that.
My neighbor had a well 125 feet deep. 200 feet away was my well, 585 feet deep.
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Wow. So that's where we're at with the water TIF system. Has to do with the water company.
Now, Scott, if you were to put it up there, all those houses down through Christian Hill have their own wells.
Yeah, they do. I know.
Would you force them onto the?
That, I brought that up in one of the meetings, what are you gonna do? You're gonna force people to go on the system, because they did with the sewer. When they put the sewer through, you had to, but it's a whole different ballgame with the water company, and I don't know that they can really do that. They probably could by ordinance, but try and get the 60% vote to buy the water company when you're gonna force people to be on that system, and you're probably not gonna do
A
it.
harder argument.
Yeah,
I would be trying to.
If they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every 10, 15 years, I gotta buy a pump.
so, but the Viewpoint up there, if they hooked on there, there's, like I said, 100 extra users. There are around 200 and some odd users on it now, so that had boosted by a third probably.
Any farms they shouldn't make, because we use so much water that it cost effective would be horrible.
So we'll see how it ends up there, whether it ends up in the town's hands or not.
We use 200 gallons a day.
You do?
Do
Your farm?
what?
You only 2 donkeys.
They drink 200 gallons a day.
You would believe, especially in the summertime, you won't believe how much water they drink. We have
So
high-
I've got 12 cattle and they drink like 40 gallons.
house metabolism is slower.
Huh, wow. That's fast.
Okay, anything else
Gallon tank, and we have to fill it up.
for the good of the order? Anybody have anything else?
So just, on the conservation committee, certainly we're gonna meet next week, a joint meeting, I believe.
Yep.
So that would be interesting. One of the things that, we've been dealing with the conservation committee is an airport fence. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No.
So David Hinkling, the airport director, about 4 or 5 times a week, they have to clear the runway of large animals, deer, and such. So, I think they have a grant to put up, an airport fence, and the location of the fence is what's been discussed. They have 2 options. One is to go along Airport Road and the perimeter of the airport, which is some fence there already. And the second option is closer to the runway. The reason they're in front of the conservation committee is they recognize that it's wetlands on both sides of Airport Road. It's critical for wildlife and other things. And at this point, everybody is in favor of it being closer to the runway than New Hampshire DES. So where it was left was if David wasn't having success, he'd come back to the conservation committee and we'd write a letter. Interestingly enough, it was brought up in the Economic Development Action Committee as well. And they understood the same thing and they offered to write a letter as well, if need be. So I don't know if it'll come in front of the planning board or not. I don't think it has to. It might come in front of you guys just as courtesy. But I figured I'd make you aware of
How
that.
tall?
Are there any FAA regulations?
Oh, yeah, there's lots of FAA regulations. Yeah, it would be off the runway, whatever the regulation is. You asked how tall. I'm thinking it's probably gonna be a 10-foot fence. And, they recognize that, people use Airport Road as recreation, right? There's a lot of birding going on there. There's a lot of people, walking their animals, their dogs and stuff. And it would just take away if you were walking adjacent to a fence, right? If they set it down the hill off the embankment, deers can jump pretty damn high. They could do 10 feet on an angle running. They probably just can't jump 10 feet, but a 6-foot fence, I've seen them just.
So it's primarily deer.
It's primarily deer. They talked about, do you raise it a little bit so the turtles can, migrate and stuff like that. But those are pretty minor. The whole idea was not to disturb the wetlands. And the runway approach, there is one section where they would be in the wetlands to put the fence in. But we'd rather see that than break up.
It's like chain link, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's allowed in our ordinance anyways, to put fences in the
Yeah, you guys
wetland.
wouldn't see it.
I think it's in there.
It's just disturbing it. So, yes, disturb it once, be done with it.
Okay. Anybody, anything else?
What did I?
Then a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned by Brandon. Is there a second? Seconded by Richard. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.